Stepmoms, how invested are you in your stepchildren? That's what I'm going to be talking about today on the Mama with MJ podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Mama with MJ podcast. I'm your host, MJ. So, today, stepmoms, I am talking to you specifically. I am a stepmom of two amazing boys and have been for the past 11 years. So, today I want to talk about how invested are you? And a good way to gauge how invested you are in their lives and being a stepmom and them as your stepchildren is ask yourself the question, do you think of this child as your spouse's child, your child, or our child? So something I had to ask myself and have had to ask myself throughout the years, is it my son? Is it our son? Or is it his son? So the reason that we have to ask that question is that will gauge how invested you are in the life of this child. So children come into blended families blindly. They don't get a choice. They don't choose that they want a stepmom in their life, right? So we have to make sure that we are sensitive to that, but also know that when we do marry a man with a child, we also have to make a commitment to that child. Bottom line. Now, what your commitment looks like can be different with every situation. When it comes to blended families as well as nuclear families, every situation and every child is different. You need to parent them a little bit differently, and I'm just here to help you navigate through that. So, when you have a stepchild, you have to make sure that in the beginning you are just a friend. We can't be a mom. We can't be an authority figure just because we need to build those relationships. Now, with my biological children, absolutely, I tell them what to do, when to do it, but they know that it's coming from a place of love because I've always been there and we have built a relationship. You have built a relationship with your spouse, obviously before you got married, but that relationship is not as firm with your stepchildren. Even if you've been coming around for a while, just know that when you get married, it's a whole different dynamic and start at ground zero. So be that friend, be a confidant, be someone that they can talk to and trust. Obviously, we want to make sure that we are building that relationship. So we are not going in as the disciplinarian. You are not going to love them like your own biological children at first because you don't have that relationship, right? So I know for me, that had to grow. Absolutely, I adored them. I thought they were awesome as soon as I met them. But the feelings for them aren't the same. And it's not going to be the same as your biological children. But over the years, I've noticed that my heart has felt no different between them and my biological children just because now we have that relationship. So if you're feeling that way, don't beat yourself up. Don't say I'm a horrible person or I'm a horrible mom because I don't have the same feelings. You're not going to, right? Because you may have invested maybe a year or two a visitation with these kiddos before you got married. It's not like you've had them since they were babies. So just understand that that is okay. That is completely normal. And you're not the only one. It's okay. Start as friends as acquaintances, as someone that, gives mutual respect and can have very cordial conversations. And then make sure once that relationship and that trust is built, your role is really to support your husband. So support your spouse in the decisions that they make for your stepchildren. Now, if you're like me, you have opinions and you think you know what should happen, what the kids should do. Make sure that you have really extensive conversations with your spouse about your stepchildren, because you want to know what it looks like. You want to know where your role is, and you want to know how you can support your spouse. So remember, you haven't been here the whole time. You don't know the child's behavior patterns. You don't know from past experiences the things that the child has been through, the things the child has been taught. So you can't jump right in and be that parent. Your role is to support what the biological parents decide. Sometimes it's a lot of tongue biting. Sometimes it's a lot of grinning and bearing it. Make sure that your spouse knows your feelings, right? I don't want to disregard your feelings at all, moms, because we have a lot of feelings about a lot of things. Don't disregard your feelings. Make sure your spouse knows it. But at the end of the day, support their decision for their child. When you start doing that and you start looking at it from a supportive role and not the role of someone that is front and center all the time, I'm just here to support, I'm here to love, and this is what I'm here to do, then your life is going to be so much easier. I know that I have had women that have come to me and talked to me about the nacho parenting, the very hands-off parenting from a step-parent point of view. That is not something that I think is healthy, and I'll be talking about that in a later podcast, but we need to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're informed, we're communicating, communicate until you think you can't communicate anymore, and then communicate some more. You have to make sure that your feelings are being heard by your spouse, that they're taking them into consideration when they're making these decisions. Because you are supporting, and whatever decision that your spouse makes, you are the one that is there to support that decision. So making sure that they know how you feel about this situation is really critical. Make sure that you leave it at that. So here are my feelings, here are my thoughts, this is what I think should happen. Now leave it up to the biological parent, and really talk about it. Now, also, when you're looking at different situations, different times in your life, different seasons of your life, you're going to feel totally different than you do now. You're going to, as your relationship grows and you cultivate that with your stepchildren, you're going to have different feelings and opinions than you did in the beginning. So again, communicate it. Communicate it with your spouse. Let them know that this is how I feel today in this situation, who I am today, who our stepchild is today. And again, it could change. It can change years from now. An example that I have was in the beginning, if my stepson were to come to my husband and say, you know what, I'm just going to live with you full time. I want to live with you full time. That would definitely be a discussion that my husband and I would have to have. So I know that he would have in the beginning said, okay, that's what you want to do. We need to discuss it. We need to talk about it. There's a process that we have to go through from living with us half the time to living with us full time. because those were my feelings in the beginning, and we had to make sure that we were keeping those boundaries. We had to make sure that he had to make sure that I was okay with everything, and he double checked with me. Because again, feelings change, and especially in the beginning, they change pretty quickly. Could be month to month that you feel differently. Um, Fast forward, 10 years, 8 years later, um, our stepson said, I'm going to come and live with you full time. And that was something that my husband was like, okay, let's go. Um, when you bring in all your stuff over, without talking to me, but letting me know what the situation was in the immediately after. And of course, that was not something he had to ask, because we have been through that where we were both on the same page, and I wanted them to be with us full time. And we had tried and tried, and it didn't work until he ultimately made the decision himself, and that was something that my husband didn't have to ask. So, again, communicate to your spouse. Let them know how you feel. Let them know what your thoughts are around these children, and make sure that in your heart you're thinking about it. You're thinking about, how do I cultivate this relationship? How do I create this relationship with this stepchild? How does it look for me, and how does it look for them? You don't want to overstep. You don't want to do something that is going to repel or make the stepchild completely go the opposite way and not want to have a relationship with you. So give it time. I know that's hard to do, but it takes a long time to build that trust and respect, but do it. It'll definitely, definitely pay off in the long run. Thanks. Talk to you guys soon.